Welcome back, Dominators. Welcome back to our special multi-part video series on how to basically blow up on Instagram using new strategies. In our last video, we actually talked about some stuff that's especially important before you even start to grow your brand on Instagram. Anyway, just to recap our last video, maybe even give you some pointers because there were some questions in the DMs and in the comment sections. There's more or less 3 building blocks of explosive Instagram growth, as I call it. You know, number one actually being the optimization phase, which we talked about in our last video, which is mainly audience development. That's so important. I can't stress this enough, but also, you know, setting up, for example, a solid content strategy where you actually give value to people. And now, just as a side note right here, because there were some questions about this, giving value. People are like, well, I'm an artist or something like this. I don't want to make just how-to content, you know, on Instagram or something like this, giving value, you know? So how can I give value? That's a Dominik. I hate you so much. I want to in your family. Yeah, that's what people actually write me about twice a week. But basically, when people talk about giving value on social media, you have to be aware that it's not just this one-dimensional thing where like value equals how-to videos equals tutorials or something like this. No, okay? Value is actually a multi-dimensional thing. It could be whatever you have figured out when talking about audience research and audience development, what we talked about in our last video. Whatever you figure out your audience actually needs from you or wants from you or expects from whatever content that it is that they follow. For example, it could be just you giving them some sort of inspiration, or it could be them just painting a very beautiful smile upon their faces. But whatever it is, make sure your content has the potential to keep them coming back all the time because they want to get more of what it is that they get from you. Not only in terms of your audience, obviously also in terms of the algorithm, which should at one point recommend your content to, you know, potential people who are similar to this. But we're not going to talk about the algorithm specifically here in today's video. We're going to talk about the algorithm in the next video that will be up in a few days, because the smart kids among you, you know, the smart dominators here, might know already that the Instagram algorithm, which is supposed to recommend your content to an awesome amount of people that are going to interact with you at one point, engage with you, this whole thing relies heavily on data, right? And you guys might know that because we've been talking about this for the better part of the last year or more. Meaning they categorize you, they scan your content, track what you say, track what's inside your content, and then they try to find matching audiences and, you know, recommend your content to other audiences, and this is how you're supposed to grow, you know, because then you'll be able to rank in the hashtags, and then you in the explore pages, and in the reel section, just stuff like this. And if the algorithm knows exactly where to put your content to, and then at the end of the day, if you know, wherever it puts your content to, the audience exactly behaves like they should, you know, then it's a match, and then great things are gonna happen. And the important thing is, if you understand how to make this thing happen, actually, you're gonna see yourself getting massive results. You know, for example, one of you guys recently sent me this. But here's the thing, we gotta get there, right? We have to get there somehow first, because especially if you're starting from zero, the algorithm knows pretty much nothing about you, and you might be like, well, nice, this whole influence accelerator system that you've talked about in the last video, Dominik. But how to actually get there? Because without the help of the algorithm, you know, it's basically for nothing. So let me show you a framework actually directly taken from my upcoming Instagram Black File 2.0, where basically I will walk you through your first, let's say 1,000 followers directly, feeding exactly the sort of data that the algorithm needs from you or wants from you, setting you actually up for long-term massive growth later on. So this 1,000 followers could, you know, let's say in 30 days you get 1,000 followers, could be that in 60 days or 90 days, you have 10,000 or more followers because you've trained the algorithm the right way. So let me get going. Guess what this whole thing means? Yeah, I'm not gonna say it this time. Let's go. Right, so let's talk about getting your first 1,000 followers. You know, we're talking about combining multiple strategies to get your results fast. And, you know, this being taken, by the way, this is being taken from my upcoming Instagram Black File 2.0. If you want to get into this whole Black File once it drops next week, be sure to get in the waiting list down below. And basically, there's multiple strategies, and the more and the faster that you might want to grow, the more strategies and the more effort and work you're going to have to put in there. And just coming into this whole thing, you have to be aware that especially your first 1,000 followers is going to be one of the hardest. You know, it's going to be draining. It's going to take a little bit of your effort, right? But nothing comes free, right? Especially when you set yourself up for long-term growth. Basically, the first 1,000 followers are so important because they're important for the algorithm as well. You know, if those first 1,000 followers are targeted for your target audience, basically, then the algorithm will see, well, all right, I have a clear understanding of where I should put you, where I should recommend you. And if those target people love to come back and love to check out your content and stay on your profile longer, and getting your content viewed time up, which is the new thing in the algorithm apparently, you're gonna see that your engagement goes up as well, obviously. But basically, what kinds of methods could you take for this whole thing? And in this video, we're gonna talk obviously about one of them. We're gonna talk mostly about the one sort of the interaction method. There's also other methods that ideally you might wanna consider as something that I call the reverse audience growth method. Basically, I'm not gonna get into this too much here in this video because it would take way too long, but basically taking other platforms or other methods to send traffic over to your Instagram profile to train the algorithm more. You could also do this through shout outs and through ads as well. But we're mainly talking about the interaction method right here. And what is this whole thing? Let's just break this whole thing down, potentially saying, well, we want to get to 1,000 followers within 30 days. Here's the thing, sometimes it takes longer, sometimes it takes not as long. So, don't nail me down on that, because that's just not how the marketing world works, contrary to what some marketers might want you to believe. But just right around talking about numbers that we actually have inside the Black File and with my clients and profiles that we manage in our agency. Basically, 1,000 followers in 30 days equals 34 followers per day, right? Right now, you might be like, well, it's actually, right now, it doesn't sound so much anymore. 34 followers a day? Could be doable, especially if you are the driving factor behind this, right? You are the driving factor. You are the driving factor behind this. You're not, in this method, you're not relying on any algorithms. Basically, nobody can stop you. Not the evil algorithm, nobody. Not the evil Zuckerberg, he can't stop you in this case. Or Mosiri. But he seems like a nice guy. I don't know what you think about him, but he still seems like a genuine nice guy, so shout out to him. So in order to get to those 34 followers a day, we're obviously gonna have to, because we talked about it, we're gonna have to interact with people, right? And we talked about it, for example, a while ago I did this 90-day challenge video, and this is something basically, some system that actually builds upon this whole thing. And basically we wanna comment and like on at least 170 posts a day. Might sound like a lot, actually is quite a lot, but like I said, results speak for themselves. Plus, we're gonna break these things down so it's a little easier for you to not just waste hours at a time of your day to go there. Right, and if we comment and like and DMs and stuff like this to 170 posts a day, and we talk about a 20% conversion rate of people that you comment on actually following back, you're gonna get there within a month to those 34 followers a day, to those 1,000 followers in the first month. So how can you get this 20% conversion rate? Because in the other video, we talked about 10% conversion rate. And granted, sometimes it's different. Every day it's kind of different. For some people, obviously this whole thing heavily relies on your profile optimization and stuff like this, on your whole foundation that you put up, your whole branding structure. If you're just a random page, obviously nothing's gonna work out for you. I just have to tell you how it is. So, if you're just a random page right now, I would strongly urge you first of all, watch the video before that video, and then watch all of my other videos up until now. But if you're somewhat optimized, if your foundation is pretty strong, and if you also use some reverse audience strategies, I'm talking about the external factor right here and the DMs, which we're going to talk about in a second, you're going to get there. We have people even being higher than that, 50%. In our agency, for example, which is really interesting. So what you want to do is take 60 to 90 minutes out of your day. And first of all, you have to identify relevant competitors, and some external sources, which just a side note right here, right? So how are we going to find that? First of all, important thing, I exactly know what kind of comments are going to be down in the comment section down below. But here's the thing. First of all, if I say you have to keep your actions below 120 to 150, one action being one interaction. I don't want to write this word right here, so we're just going to draw a star, a little bit blue, and a little bit yellow, right? This is one interaction, meaning a like and a comment at least, right? And I say you have to keep this whole thing below 120 to 150 per hour. Now, this is not a set number. This heavily depends on, first of all, your own trust score. It heavily depends on how you're set up, what the Instagram algorithm thinks of you, how new your profile is, and so forth. If you never take any actions on Instagram, if you never like and share, you might want to stick to this, maybe even lower. But if you are a little bit more advanced, if your profile is 10 years old already or something like this, you can sometimes go above that, right? The limit obviously being different for each and everybody of you. How do I know that? We have hundreds of clients, first of all, hundreds of test accounts as well, and years of experience, and we have never figured out, I tried to set up so many test accounts to figure out, what about this whole limit talk that people speak about? And we did not find out a single limit that's the same for the whole platform. So just so you know. So what you want to do is you want to find 10 to 15 hashtags, right? Relevant hashtags, obviously, not just some random ones. Relevant hashtags in your niche, right? Where your target audience is hanging out, and then you want to put 5 comments each on your relevant hashtags, right? So let's say you have 10 hashtags times 5, 50 comments, right? We're gonna talk about what exactly you have to comment. Then you're gonna find out your competitors' engagers, right? So let's just say, I'm gonna show you an example later on. For example, you go to Gary V. Obviously, Gary V probably being a little bit of a too broad example. I would suggest you to look into profiles with 100 to 250K followers or something like this. Sometimes even smaller ones, right around your size, or 1,000 or 5,000 emerging ones, because this is where the growth is really at. And then the people who comment on Gary V's post, you comment on their comments. Comment on their comments, you like their posts, you comment on their posts, and so forth. And you're gonna want to do this twice a day, right? And you can obviously mix and match that. Let's say you have 2 sessions each day, 45 minutes and 45 minutes. One time you do 2 hashtags and just one, engagement, whatever, and the other way around at some point. But at the end of the day, you might want to get to right around those 170 actions, right? If there's some more things that you could do, we're not going to talk about this, like I said, because it's just too much here for a video like this. But you're going to get there. Just with those 2 things, you're going to get to those 170 actions, 200 actions, or whatever it is, right? Now, what are you going to comment on them? Be aware that you can't just comment them an emoji and saying, wow, I love your post. Great, check out my own post. Don't do this, then it's not gonna work. Each comment / message must be unique and individual. And this is why it just takes so much effort, Hence, why we do, in my agency, we have a service for people actually doing this, because it takes effort. But, I get it. If you're starting out, obviously, you might wanna do this yourself even to also get to know your audience a little better. Because what you wanna do is you wanna actually be really social on social media. Not only for having to do the manual work yourself, but actually getting a feel for your audience, because this is another very important part to enabling massive growth on social media, is actually deciphering your audience and deciphering what's happening inside your niche, right? So strike up a conversation, for example, comment on current trends, show your knowledge, show your authority and stuff like this, and don't directly relate it to you. This is the biggest no-no. We talked about it in the last video. People are just sick of it. They know those methods, those spammers that are commenting and then they follow and then they say, hey, check out my post. I have something similar to this. No, you're gonna have to be a little bit more nuanced than this. For example, 1TF for the people who are not yet inside my black file, meaning one true fan, meaning the one person, basically customer, follower, avatar, as people might say it. Basically, in order to figure that out, you're gonna have to do some competitor research. This is how you're gonna find out your competitors, ideally. We have very, very sophisticated systems of actually nailing these 2 things down inside the black file. But basically, with your competitors, for example, in this case, Ron Segal, shout out, by the way, awesome guy. You're gonna identify his engagers, and then you're gonna engage with them. For example, Dolly Drury, she asks a question, right? So what you wanna do is you wanna hit the reply button and actually give her some value. you know, and you wanna look out for stuff like this. Obviously, you don't only have to look out for questions, but for example, for the Augustine Collins, you could go ahead to his profile, check out his content, and then, you know, comment on his content and basically also give value, you know. And if you do that, you know, you could comment on more than one post. You know, you can comment 2 to 3 times to his content, you know, then you make sure he's gonna notice you, right? You also could strike him up in the DMs, for example, you know, which we have a framework in the black file, but we're not gonna talk about that right here. But basically, if you follow this through, you're gonna get results today. You know, I can guarantee you that. Take the next 45 minutes, you know, watch this video again, do exactly what I said. You're gonna see people are gonna come to your profile. You're gonna get some traffic at least. And now it's your time to actually use this traffic, take this traffic, and actually convert them over to becoming your followers, you know? So yeah, this obviously being actually, in my opinion, the best method to actually get your first 1,000 followers, your first few hundred to few thousand followers on Instagram. But not only that, but to also train the algorithm to get to notice you the right way with laser targeted people so that it can, you know, recommend your content, recommend your profile to, you know, similar people, because this is what actually Instagram does. Now, if you like to go even deeper into similar strategies like this, obviously this being just 1%, if even, what we talk about in the black file 2.0, you know, keep your eyes open, because, you know, once this whole black file drops on February the 8th, it's gonna be only open for a few days. So make sure you're on the waiting list down below. You know, just sign up with your name, your email. Because here's the thing, when I'm gonna open this whole thing up on February the 8th, it's only gonna be open, first of all, for a few days, and second of all, only for a small set of students. It's basically first come, first serve, you know, so if you're on the waiting list, you actually get access to join the black file before the general public does. And last time that we did this, actually, almost all of the seats were taken from the early bird people on the waiting list. So make sure you're on the waiting list. Right now, there's already about 1,000 people on there. But anyway, my name is Dominic, in case you didn't know. Don't forget to subscribe, obviously. And in the next video, we'll talk about the Instagram algorithm really deep. I can't wait to show this to you. Some very interesting insights. So I'll see you guys later. Bye-bye, my friends. Bye.